4, 3, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eric Wright, some maker, thinker, puppeteer, performer, tinker. But to get it done, he knows 2 heads are better than 1. You'll be delighted at who he's invited to come on by. Get inspired and give their tricks a try. Their work and processes will ignite your own curiosities. Spark authentic conversation. We love your participation. With Katie standing by, let's start the connection. It's Puppet Time Online at Puppet Kitchen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Puppet Time Online. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Puppet Time Online is your chance to sit down with some of the puppetry community's finest and me and learn about what they know about. Puppet Time Online is brought to you by the Puppet Kitchen, which is your connection to amazing puppetry. From designing and building to performing and coaching, Puppet Kitchen does it all. I'm also joined today, as usual, by Katie.
Hi.
She's running the show over here. Making sure everything goes smoothly, and more importantly,
Eric, guess what?
What?
What's today?
Today's our 50th episode.
What?
Woohoo!
Was that an unexpected prompt?
Keeping us on track, as I mentioned. And more important, she is also catching your comments and questions. So if you have comments or if you want to join the conversation, type it into the chat below or over on this side if you're on Facebook, or maybe on this side if you're on Twitch. So that we can hear from you, and we want to throw your questions into the mix as well. I am very excited for this special episode. You may have noticed our new theme song and intro, of course, written and produced by the great Jocelyn, Mackenzie, and Emily Hope Price, performed by me and Katie. And I'm very excited to show you all our new theme. Just one of the many celebrations of our 50th episode here at Puppet Time Online. The other is our very special guest today, who I'm very excited to introduce to you. He is, I think you could safely say, my favorite song and dance man, and really the unsung puppeteer in Little Shop of Horrors. Other side projects he has done include
small side projects.
Little things include Spring Awakening, Glee, Mindhunter, Hamilton. He played King George, and in Frozen and Frozen 2, he played Kristoff. So please welcome to the show, Jonathan Groff. Hi.
Eric, happy 50th episode.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm glad you got the note about making sure that we look like brothers.
Yes, always. I'm always.
It's also my brother's birthday today, so happy birthday, Andy.
Oh my God, Andy, happy birthday. How
Speaking of brothers.
Wow, it's your 50th episode and it's your brother's birthday. This is a huge, momentous moment.
It's really great. I'm so glad you could be here.
I'm very honored to be here for your 50th.
And so glad to all of you out there watching to help us celebrate as well.
And that theme song is so good.
Isn't it good?
It's so good. It's so well performed. And I want to know, I have a quick question before we get into the
meat of it.
Intense, the back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
That final ding with the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Did the thumbs up come first, or did the ding come first and then you added the thumbs up?
Well, it was all Katie's idea for that final ding to be the button.
Well, Eric told me that I was going to be the hand waving.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew we were building a little hand, and then he made such a beautiful final image, and I was like, I want to be in the final image.
Yeah. She was like, okay, well, this is great, but at the end, I have to come back in and do a thumbs up, and it has to go ding. And I was like, you're right. Actually, you're right. That is the perfect little button to put on this.
So it was the idea for the thumbs up, and then the ding was added.
It was all came at the same. Yeah, like the ding came. Like I was like, Emily and Jocelyn, we have to add a ding, and I have to build a thumbs up so that we can have it.
I mean, I'm a pretty good ding already. So if you could experience that musically and visually.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
I love that. I love it.
They did a really great job with it. I'm very, very happy.
So good. So good.
Well, Mr. Groff, you know, we usually start our interview by asking people how they got into puppetry. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like your experience in the puppetry world.
Yeah. So like I have never dabbled at all with puppetry until, well, I mean, with the exception of like shadow puppets as a kid on the wall, like those kind of things. And loving the TV show Under the Umbrella Tree on the Disney Channel as a kid.
Nice.
I was always a puppet fan,
yeah,
but hadn't really worked with puppets at all until our experience together on Little Shop.
Amazing.
And it was one of the things I was most looking forward to, because the opportunity to sing a duet with you / Kingsley / Teddy on certain days.
Yeah.
Like that opportunity to act with someone who's operating a puppet, and then also the opportunity to work a puppet during that song in the middle of the first act was really exciting to me. And that was my first, nice, Katie. Excellent.
This is the proof. This is the proof that you are in fact operating this puppet.
That's Audrey 2, number 2, right?
Yeah, Pod 2.
Pod 2. It was one of the most challenging parts. And there's Audrey 2, Pod 1.
That's me in Pod 1 there.
I have so many things I want to say about this. When I look at this picture, the first memory that comes to my mind, Eric, because every day, I mean, you and Teddy would alternate with Pod 3, but every day you were under this desk operating this puppet.
Right.
And we had such a fun time exploring together, collaborating with the different ways the audience was going to react to that puppet.
Yeah.
And I really remember us finding, I can't remember the word that I was singing, but it was like a long held out word that I would put vibrato in towards the end. And I remember the day that you added your tongue on the vibrato. And the audience went crazy. And that really sums up the thing that I loved most about getting the chance to work with you and Teddy, is that the listening and the attention to detail that happens with puppeteers is so next level. And it's like you're comedy writers or something, where you're so plugged into human behavior and detail, and how that sort of articulates itself in the specificity of performance. And it was so inspiring to work with you. And it
that's high praise. I mean, likewise. But that's really good that you've picked up on that. I mean, like, I don't think a lot of people really do when they work with puppeteers.
Well, I wouldn't have, honestly, like seeing puppets or like seeing shows with puppets in them are one thing, and I enjoy it as a piece of entertainment, but to actually watch you all working, and the math, it's very mathematical. The math and the attention to detail that has to happen to articulate story was a real education. Watching like even, you know, with Pod 4, the giant Audrey 2, and the ways that you had to, both of you, control the movement and the mouth, and all of the work that goes into making it entertaining. I think of puppets as like fun and entertainment, but watching you guys work really made me realize all of the painstaking, detailed work that goes into doing it. It was incredible to witness.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That means a lot. I mean, it was also very inspiring to work with you, because it was just, I tell this to people over and over about my experience on Little Shop, but being in the room with people who are at the top of their game is a different kind of inspiring, that is the most fun kind of inspiring. It's like, being in the room with you and Christian and Kingsley and Tammy and everybody, just like, it's like, oh, this is where we're at right now. Like, this is what we have to be doing. Like, this is how much we have to be thinking. This is how much we have to bring each day to like try stuff. That was really inspiring as well. Did you want to throw in a question there?
Yeah, well, I think in the spirit of the 50th anniversary episode, I feel as though the first question should probably go to your dad.
Yes, agreed.
I think that's only fair. I know we have a
Long
lot
time.
of people watching,
We're
going to give Greg the first question.
Yeah, can Jonathan
Look
say
how
more
cute
about
Greg
the
is
math
looking
of
in
the
that
puppet?
picture. Greg, like, you're so handsome.
He's a handsome fellow.
Wow.
So my dad's wondering if you could say a little bit more about the math of the puppetry. Obviously, he's a very, very, I get my love of science and math from my dad. That was my first love, even before theater. So hearing you say that there's math involved is very exciting.
Okay, yes. Okay. I mean, there's a million things. I can say, I guess the first thing that's coming to my head is the pod that you had shown the picture of before, where I'm learning how to operate the pod 2, yes.
Yeah.
So like, even if you look at this, the like length of when I would like pull the design was so specific because it had to look real and I had to be able to hold it inside of that pot without it moving, because when it came to life, the audience had to be surprised that it was moving.
Right.
That is, to the left is a fake arm. Oh God, am I ruining the magic of Little Shop of Horrors? Is this?
I mean, if people are tuning into this show, I mean, I
Okay,
think
they
they
already
know.
know.
Yet.
That is a fake arm on the left. And so the design had to be such that it really looked like my arm and not like a fake arm, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were things like the exact tilt of the head made the puppet look angry, or made it look hungry, or shaking made it look eager. Mm-hmm. There was all of these very specific movements that were telling the story. It was incredibly, I guess, when I think of the math, I think of the incredible technical elements of operating the puppet. Yeah. You're knowing that things have to be in a very exact position. The design has to be exact. And then in pod 4, the two of you having to work together, because one of you is, correct me if I'm wrong, one of you is operating the kind of side to side and like giant motions of the puppet, and the other was operating the giant opening and closing of the mouth. So one is operating the talking, and the other is operating the movement, and you have to synchronize not only with each other, but also with Kingsley, who is the voice, and then also with the lights that are on you and the other actors, and then props, like spitting out the balls at the, all of this stuff.
And so the machete and all, and devouring people.
And devouring people, yes. And not like, we would go in and try to not hit our head on the thing as you're moving the thing. So there's just so many plates spinning at one time.
Can you tell me a little bit about, because Mike Latini and Mark Petrosino from the Monkey Boys were responsible for sort of helping you learn the puppetry and sort of getting you to a place where you can kind of act with the puppet.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that process was like? And also, like, I need to say, like, you're, as far as people who have never puppeteered before, you're very good at it in a way that's just maddening.
Oh God!
I assume it's because you also have a lot of other skills that can aid when you're learning this puppetry. Like, I'm really curious, like, what other skills you tapped into that you already have helped when you were learning how to be a puppeteer.
I thought it would be so much easier than it was. and it, like, I can. I've done, it's like tap dancing. You're, every time I would see the Monkey Boys walking in with their white pad, I would be like, oh God, what is the note now? It was like endless technical notes about puppeteering that it ended up being way more challenging than I anticipated it being, and then way more rewarding than I anticipated it being. It was kind of like when you're learning to play an instrument. I'm trying to, like, there's a couple of times where I've had to learn how to play the piano or the guitar for certain projects, and you're like, ow, for weeks, your hands are hurting, the piano or the guitar or drums, or, learning a new skill that uses your motor skills in a different way.
Yeah.
My arm, I was like, I'll never play the violin again. It was a total workout, which I wasn't anticipating, for starters. Just for the multiple hours in the rehearsal room with that thing on, was a shock. And then this, I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record, but this detail, this is what I learned from the Monkey Boys that was really so essential to the execution, is the littlest detail can express something so big for the audience. So something as little as when I'm have the thing when the Audrey 2 is hungry and the mouth is open, and the adding a little bit of a shake to it of to express eagerness would get a laugh from the audience. Or this is another technical example that they would constantly tell me that I would always forget to do, and then I would be like, oh right, when the head would move and come out, and it was the first movement, doing a giant move forward, doing an entrance move to signal to the audience that something's happening, instead of just moving forward and opening the mouth, but doing like a big sweep to show an over-exaggerated sweep to show what was happening. There was this balance of big motions and small motions, like big motions to grab attention, and then if you had the attention, you could do something subtle, like tongue wag on vibrato or something. But it was like a dance of learning all those movements, and it took real focus as the inexperienced actor learning basic puppeteering skills to be able to get those out.
It's interesting that you refer to it like making an entrance. Like that is totally, in my experience, there's a difference between coming on stage and making an entrance. And, that wrapping your head around that idea in like the movement of your hand, or like the movement of a puppet, I think it really speaks to figuring out the difference in quality of movement that you're talking about.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because the character of Seymour in the script, I remember when I first sat down to read the script when we were about to do the show, this entrance of his character is him falling into the shop.
Right.
What a klutz, he's falls right. And it just says everything. I feel like this show of Little Shop too, it's such a perfectly written show. Yeah. Every line, every detail, every note, every lyric is so intentional, just like great puppetry. All those nuances and details are there. Even in this entrance of Seymour, you know exactly who he is from the moment he literally falls onto the stage.
Yeah.
That like even bringing in the first pod.
Yeah.
It's like holding it, bringing it center stage. It's this small, adorable little thing. And then you get the story of greed as it grows and develops into this giant monster. It's just
one of the things I love learning from Martin Robinson when he came and saw the show and was telling us about sort of the backstory of working with everyone on the creation of that show, was that written into the show is intentional stillness of the puppet for each of the pods. Like you see the puppet as a unmoving plant.
Wow.
In every scene before it comes alive, so that every time it gets bigger, it's like a double surprise. It's like the first surprise is just seeing it bigger, and then the next surprise is that it moves, and that's built into the show with that intention. Which I think it just makes it one of the, like, that's the reason it's such a good show for puppetry. Did you want to throw something in there?
Yeah, we had a good question.
Oh, great. Okay, so when you're acting opposite Audrey 2, was the relationship more analogous to acting with a prop or a co-star? And did that change when you're operating the puppet yourself? That's a good question.
Wait, what is
analogous? So it's like, is it when you're acting alongside? Let's say like when we're singing that duet with Pod 3. What is that experience like? Do you see the prop of it? Do you see that it's like
I understand.
Fabric and a constructed object with a person inside, or do you get to that place where it's just a co-star, it's just a character?
Yes, B. I would say B. I started to, as the run of the show went on, and we were all going deeper and deeper into it, I really, especially in Feed Me, I started to feel more than I have in any show ever before, like my feet were, like I was outside of my body, like I was flying. And I think a lot of it had to do with, a lot of it has to do with the material, the song, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And the story of that song from point A to point Z, and how it, in 6 minutes, it goes from a plant that doesn't speak to a plant that has motivated the character to go murder someone in the course of the song. So a lot is happening in the story, and the song is so incredible.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with the material, but also getting the chance to work with you, Teddy, and Kingsley in that moment is like, because we all have to be listening so much, because the plant has to match the voice and I have to be reacting to the plant, that there's just like 10% more kind of vibration awareness, that we're sort of open to anything happening. Always, with great actors, and everybody in Little Shop, certainly we're great awake actors, and that a unique company because of that. And then when you get with great actors, everybody's listening and ready to change anything at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And with the puppet and the voice, it's like that times 10, because you have to be so aware of everything. So it's like acting with a co-star, but even just a few degrees more alive, because the magic of the moment is completely dependent on the three of us being in sync together. And the minute one person slips up, the magic is gone. You can all of a sudden, the minute the voice doesn't go with the puppet, you're like, oh, it's a puppet. As an audience member, it's just like, it's so tenuous. Yeah. But if it's completely flawless, and the voice and the puppet and the moment all aligns, there's nothing more transporting, but it really takes that extra focus.
Yeah. Do you remember, I feel like a lot of people have a moment where that switch happens for the first time, where like, they're being introduced to the puppet for the first time, where they're like, they're like, the difference between here's these objects that we're going to use for the play, and here's this character. Do you remember where that moment was for you?
You guys were always in rehearsal, day one of rehearsal. I forget who jumped into the puppet. I don't think it was you. I don't remember.
Probably Mark jumped in to Pod 3 on the first day.
On the first day, and the minute he jumped in the puppet, it's just like magic. It was a creature. You're like, oh my god! And then in rehearsal, even when we weren't. I remember Pod 4 we didn't get until we went into the theater, but you guys would sometimes either pick up Pod 1 and use it, or sometimes Pod 3 would be the substitute for Pod 4. Mm-hmm. Anytime you and Teddy jumped into the puppet, do you hear that rooster? That's
yes.
My rooster. Anytime you guys jumped into the puppet, it came to life. It was always magic.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, you want to throw in another question there? Gigi?
Yeah, I thought this was a good one.
Oh, from the Mo Show. Hi, Mo Show. We're pretty sure the answer is no, but I can dream. Do you have a Sven puppet when you're recording for Frozen? If not, shouldn't you? It's a really good question.
We also had some questions about some other voiceover work that you've done that maybe had some puppets.
Yeah, your voice has been in other puppet projects like The Sound of Music for Marionette Theater in Salzburg and 1001 Nights. Did you get to work with puppets there, or was it just VO?
Oh my God. Kudos for knowing that. That's so cool. And that, I got to see that marionette production of The Sound of Music when it came through Pennsylvania, actually, and it was so cool.
Yeah.
We didn't ever, maybe on the first day they showed us some images and maybe an idea of what the puppets were going to look like. But when we were recording it, we were just recording that in a studio. Playing Rolf in The Sound of Music is like I did it when I was 16, going on 17. I was in high school at the Fulton Opera House here in Pennsylvania. I played Rolf. I played Rolf in the Troika National Tour of Sound of Music, and then I got to commit my voice to the marionette version. So I'm so thrilled that my voice is in that marionette thing forever. So it was really cool to do that. With Sven, the thing about Sven in Frozen is that I didn't have a puppet, although I do have a stuffed Sven that sometimes when I'm making videos for little kids, I'll use him as a prop.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Sven is that it's meant to be the way that we speak in voices as our pets.
Uh-huh.
So Christoph, when he's doing the voice of Sven, is like my friend who has a cat, and when the cat walks into the room, it's like, hey guys, what's going on? Whatever the voice is that the human person has for the cat.
Yeah.
So in that regard, when I was recording Christoph as Sven, it made sense that there wasn't a puppet because he was doing a weird voice as a human being anyway.
You know, it's funny. I often cite that tendency. I feel like that's just a tendency as people that we like speak for our pets or like speak for other objects.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's something in there that is part of why puppets work also, because it's about like what we're doing on stage with Audrey 2 wouldn't work without the audience either. You know, like the audience needs to buy in that this thing is alive and moving, and like that's what makes just the movements tell stories, is that we do emotion and they fill in all the rest. And I feel like it's connected somehow to that, like speaking for your pet. You see them, you know, bat something off the table and it's like, you know what they're thinking.
Yes, totally. I feel like that's also that just made me think of another quality in puppeteers that I also live for, that is what we're striving for as actors, but oftentimes our own vanity and ego gets in the way. But as a puppeteer, you are creating an illusion for an audience to escape, which is what we also want to do as actors, to embody a character, to tell a story to an audience, to allow them to transcend and reflect on their own experiences.
Oh,
someone just rang my doorbell.
The flowers I sent have arrived, I suppose. Yeah, okay. In the meantime, let's look at some other photos of Jonathan in some of the other productions he's done.
Well, we've got some Frozen.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Was that
do
you have the picture of him on the bed?
Yeah.
Does he have the Sven?
That's a weird way to describe it, but I have to show it quickly.
Well, I was wondering if he had the Sven puppet.
I looked for the Sven. The Sven was not in this picture.
Seems like he has most other characters with him.
Maybe he's embodying Sven
in that moment.
Yeah.
That seems like
appropriate, and also probably like close to the right size.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that would be scary if Sven was that much bigger.
Right.
That's great. Yeah.
Here's Jonathan Groff. He said this was a trip that he took to Disney with his family.
Yeah.
It must be such a trip to go to Disney and see
and then hug
your
a character from your show.
I can't even imagine.
What?
I mean, I'm a little bit weirded out already just seeing some of the like fan merchandise that's been made of our show of Little Shop.
Oh yeah.
It's great. I mean, I love it. It just is it's a strange
Like
experience.
things that fans have made and then they send backstage.
Oh my God.
Well, that are available
Oh,
on
I
like
see.
on Redbubble or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, you're back.
My neighbors who I haven't yet met bringing me like muffins and I guess
That's
like,
great.
Delivery.
I was like, I'm recording an interview and we only have a certain amount of time. We're gonna come back tomorrow.
That's so sweet.
So sweet.
But
what I wanted to say quickly was like the kind of modesty or humbleness or like puppeteers are really about the work. They're really about telling the story because you know, you guys came out for the bow at the end of Little Shop of Horrors, but people know your work as that puppet.
right.
And there's an egolessness that's involved in the work of puppeteers. I'm sure that there's a lot of monsters that are also puppeteers. Not to say that every puppeteer is,
I mean, Elmo, Grover, like, they're all monsters in the puppet world.
but there's a truthful, there's a purity to storytelling that is in puppetry that I feel like is what we're trying to touch as actors as well. That when in working with you guys and in working with the puppets, it would plug me back into that essence, that real essence of storytelling.
Do you feel like it in like needing to be a puppeteer in this show and sort of activate that part of your brain? Do you think that influenced your character in the show in general? Like, do you think did that influence how you were creating the rest of the story on stage?
Yes, because it made me think of things in a technical way. It made me think of, well, and Christian, who's also like a genius comedian, also very technical in his like the bits that he would work out or that he would include us in had very specific movements. And so it was like a combination of Christian and a combination of working with the puppet that brought me into a technical awareness that I think if Christian wasn't there and if there wasn't puppets involved, I wouldn't have occurred to me as much in the process of the show. Yeah. Body movements and signaling things and of course embodying and being in the moment, but also always exploring and whittling away the better ways that I could tell the story with my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you want to throw in a question?
Yeah, we had another good question.
From Alejandro. Which has been the most surrealistic moment with Little Shop's puppet? Like a moment where you felt really connected to it? A real surreal moment? That's a good question. You were talking about that sort of out-of-body experience during Feed Me.
That was really crazy. I guess just that I think I could, it's so interesting because the puppets, one might think that it would take you out of it more because it's a human being inside of a puppet costume as opposed to interacting with just the human being.
Yeah.
But there was something about interacting with the puppets that made my imagination more full on. Mm-hmm. And it was that song and sequence of Feed Me where I would be like, I'd like getting up on the desk and singing like the guy sure looks like plant food to me with you. I was like lit and I was really feeling it. And then at the end, what the first thing I thought of at the end when Seymour is on the floor and we have our final sequence right before I jump into your mouth.
Yeah.
And say like, this was your plan all along. And screaming at the puppet.
Yeah.
Just like yelling at it and wanting to kill it. And like the tears would pour out of my face. Yeah. I would, I'm screaming and spitting at you. And it felt like life and death. It really, like it felt real.
Yeah.
out there.
I mean, we felt it too. I mean, that I think is also what people miss in that show a lot, is that, and I think it's written right in the beginning. Like if you license the play, they say everything here is played straight. Like it has to, for it to work, you have to play it like you mean it. And then like all the comedy and like all of everything else follows, all the believability follows. But when you play it like it's real life and death, because it is, like literally we are eating people.
Yeah.
Like that, you have to believe it that much for it to really work. And it's really exciting when that happens on stage, I think.
Totally. It felt next level to me. And it's also what I love too about that show is that it felt like doing a Shakespearean tragedy, but for us, but the experience for the audience was total entertainment.
Yeah.
And so when it was over, as an actor, we get the feeling of exorcism that comes with doing a tragedy. We get to get all of that out, or this is how I personally feel, like we get all of it out. And then at the end, people had such a great time. So it was a great exorcism of inner drama for the performers, and then a total joyride for the audience. And it's rare that you get that combination. Oftentimes, when you have that experience as an actor of living a tragedy on stage, the audience is like, oh God, how do you do that all the time? Or what, I need a drink or whatever. But this was the weird shift where you get that experience as the actor, but the audience has a blast.
You want to throw another question in
we
there?
got another great question.
Great, from Peter Court. I was really lucky to play Mushnik several years ago, and being eaten by the plant was the most physical thing he's ever done on stage. And he played Barnum on stage. How physical did you find Little Shop, in comparison to other roles that you've done? I mean, it's regardless that it's pretty much exactly the same as Hamilton. Like that same story-wise, and your physical exertion throughout the show seems exactly the same. So we'll just throw that one out there.
Oh my God, yeah, that was the last thing I did on stage, and was the polar opposite, because it was being as still as humanly possible. Yeah. And this, it was. I'm surprised that for you, the gentleman that played Mushnik and Son, I'm surprised that Mushnik and Son wasn't the most, was more physical, it seems like, than getting into the plant. But I guess he had a very dramatic physical death inside the plant. It was incredibly physical. That was part of the joy. It was getting to do physical comedy, and the pratfall falling into the stage, like we were talking about, the first entrance, and the just even the characterization of Seymour and his kind of. One of the notes that Michael Mayer gave me early on in the rehearsal process was, I want you to be like one of those kids, whether it's a male or a female, that is tall in middle school, but doesn't like being tall, is so embarrassed to be tall, that they form this kind of just desire to be like everybody else, and this sort of physical thing. And that was one of the first things he said to me that really inspired me as far as like the first part of the physicalization, and then obviously everything with the puppets and all of that. Yes, it was extremely physical. And that.
Do you have training in physical theater specifically, or is it? I mean, I know you have tons of dance training, obviously.
I have no training in anything, and that's the truth. It's the truth. I never went to college for theater, and I've never had any formal training. So or any real formal process. And that's what part of the fun of each job for me is, like, starting from scratch. I have nothing to sort of lean on. So that it's sort of each opportunity is an opportunity for growth and to find something new. And certainly with Little Shop, it was the physical aspect of the show and the puppet aspect of the show. And it was like a crash course in physical comedy and getting to work with the puppets and getting to work with Christian.
I know. I mean, talk about a dream.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like his specificity and like the way that he works on comedy from a physical perspective is, I mean, that is what I was really soaking up during the production. It's just like being able to watch him work and work out physical comedy bits is, you know, just in line with how I think.
It was like such a joy. And then Tammy is the completely opposite end of the spectrum, where Tammy is like so emotional and so in the moment and so raw and real and authentic. So she would come out with something different every single day.
Yeah.
And getting to, as Seymour, go between those two, like ultra emotional and in the moment, ultra technical and incredibly specific, and get to experience both of those worlds by getting to act with both of them at the same time was really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and her physicality in the show really reflects that too, because it's like she doesn't have the same attention to it. So her physicality is very different. It's like very as fluid as her emotions are.
Yes.
In a really amazing, like fascinating study on like letting go of that kind of specificity and also still being an amazing physical performer.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Totally.
I also thought, like, you know, you mentioned you don't really have training in physical theater, but like one of the things I've always loved about your performance in Hamilton is the stillness of it, like is the physicality of it. And I can really point to that as like, this is like part of the reason it's so funny, like part of the reason it's so good is because of that stillness. Was that part of your part of your thinking in the character during that time or developing that character, or was it also technical?
It was as developed before I even got there, in that I replaced Brian Darcy James in the show off Broadway first, a week after they opened. And so he was coming in incredibly still, incredibly funny, and this, you know, still, and then breaking the stillness with the shoulder dance at the end was all him.
Interesting.
So I stole all of that from him, obviously. And then but the real thing I learned from this process, in the end, my rehearsal process was the off-Broadway run, because I never had a rehearsal process. I just replaced him. And when I went into the show, I had no accent, I had no British accent, I had no sense of character. I just like learned the song basically and came on stage and did it and left. And it killed. And I realized, oh wow, like my mom could be the king in Hamilton and kill it, because it's just so deeply funny as written. So then I really started to, when I was putting my own spin on it, I started to really think about minimalism and started to think about sociopaths, and started to think about insanity, but all in simplicity. And then I started to, as the months wore on, found the little details that I added in that were like jumping off points, whether it was like the audience one day or something Lynn had said or the lyric or whatever. I started to fill in this simplicity with little details, but all of the basic elements of the simplicity of the character were already there when I got there.
I'm really, really curious about if we can talk about process a little bit. I'm really curious about
processes. It's in your intro song.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that? Yeah, processes.
So I'm curious, like, what your work is like. Like, you know, you're an actor. That's your job. Like, that's your whole career. And I think a lot of people see that career as the work being done in the rehearsal room or in performance. And having been part of that as well, I know that so much work happens outside of the rehearsal room. I'm really curious what you work on in between rehearsals or before a project starts.
This goes back to your dad's question about math. I think of this pre-rehearsal work as math, in that it is like the boring, not uninspiring, because it can inspire in some ways, but like, for example, with Little Shop, I hadn't done a musical in years, so I knew I had to sing every day, and I knew I had to learn all of the songs before the first day of rehearsal. So I called Will, and we met up in June, I think, or July, and our first rehearsal was the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned all the songs, and I got all the songs in my voice, so that when we were rehearsing, I could sing the same song all day and not stop or get tired or whatever, like building up the muscle of that.
Mm-hmm.
I also learned all my lines before the first day of rehearsal so that I could be present. If it's a play that's already written, I'm always coming in off book so that I can actually create. And creating comes from collaborating, comes from watching the other people, comes from getting inspired by ideas. But I always feel like if I can get the lines in my body and do my homework, then I can show up and actually create and have fun and enjoy the experience. So I do all the math before the first day of rehearsal, which is memorizing the lines. It's like doing your algebra homework. Memorizing the lines, learning the songs, sitting alone at home, or like with Mindhunter, when we would do the long interview scenes. Days before, I would be sitting, okay, here we go. And I would sit for hours and just sort of go through line by line and make sure I knew the scenes like the back of my hand, so that the actual experience of rehearsal and shooting could be fun and creative. That's really the only thing I have in my process, is that level of preparation and memorization before I start.
And then what about like when rehearsals, like in the times between being in the rehearsal room, is there work that you do, you know, after you've left for the day or before you come in the next day that's based on, you know, discoveries you've made or anything like that?
No.
You kind of just sit with
my way of preparing is to not prepare. In as far as that is concerned, like preparation, yes, as far as learning the lines and whatever, but even like, as you know, because we shared the dressing room, I will wait until the very last minute to get into my costume. I will wait. I will ride my bike to the theater as part of my preparation, because it keeps me in the moment, having to like dodge traffic and listen to stoplights and, you know, get a little exercise going. That's I guess part of my preparation. But I start to overthink if I get in my costume too early, or if I think about what I want. The minute I think about what I want to do, for me, it's dead. Yeah. Or the minute I'm reflecting too much about what just happened and how I will do that the next day, it's becoming too, it's not in the moment. So it's that sort of element of not being prepared is part of my preparation.
Yeah. Did you have a question you want to?
Yeah, we had a couple good questions.
From Emma M. What's been keeping you happy and positive during the pandemic?
And then this might be part of the answer. I'm not sure.
Is your quarantine movie club still going? And what was your favorite movie that you discovered or were able to introduce to your friends?
This was such a good, Katie. What a good pairing of questions, because it is absolutely related. The biggest thing that I kept consistent the whole time is this film club with some friends where we would watch 4 movies every week and then discuss them. And then about 6 months in, it became 4 movies every 2 weeks. And then it ended in May. And last week we had our first in-person movie club where we met in person and went to go see Fellini's 8.5 at the Film Forum. Fellini, Armacord was one of the first movies that we watched. So it felt appropriate that we would have our first in-person seeing a Fellini movie, which was awesome. So it's still going, but not like it was now that life is coming back to normal, we're going to meet up in person and see classic movies. That's the plan moving forward. Definitely that made me happy during quarantine. Exercise was a lifesaver. I would say once a month, once every 2 months, we would do our little shop dressing room Zoom, where we would get the dressing room back together and everybody would go on a Zoom. That was really fun.
That was pretty fun.
I had a cocktail hour with some friends every Friday. That was really fun. Yeah, and being here in Pennsylvania with my family and that rooster next door has been, and the goats, and
Yeah, the muffins and grains of it all.
yeah, how sweet. Oh my God, I feel so bad. I really was like, thank you for these things. I can't talk to you right now. I'm really there. Come back tomorrow. Come back tomorrow at noon.
I'm thankful. Thank you.
They're coming back.
The
Maybe I could make them something in return. Actually, yes, this will be good.
There you go.
Make them
We
something.
had a lot of questions coming in
About what you're
what
working
you might
on.
be worried. A lot of questions about a little show called Mindhunter. People
Mhm.
are curious if
Oh.
it's coming back. I don't know what you're allowed to say.
I have no information about Mindhunter. Someone texted me like 3 weeks ago an article saying that there's talks about a third season, but I haven't heard anything about this, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
What am I working on right now? Okay, what am I working on right now? I'm doing a voice for a show called Lost Ollie that's going to be on Netflix. That's where I'm voicing a bunny.
Great.
That's been really fun, and that I've been able to do. So another voiceover that I've been doing from my guest room here in Pennsylvania. It's been cool to feel creative in the same. I look out the window and it's where we put on plays as kids when I was cool. So to be recording something and looking out there has been really cool. That's it. That's the only thing I'm working on right now, officially.
And you, as I recall, left Little Shop to go work on a big project overseas.
Yes, Matrix 4.
Matrix 4, which is coming out in December. Is that right?
December, yes.
Gosh, it's very exciting.
Very exciting. Oh my God, very exciting. That was.
And how was, without giving away anything in the show, again, because we're talking about process, like what was the new thing that you learned from that experience that you hadn't done before?
Oh my God. Well, the fighting was so. Remember when we were, because I found out I got the Matrix when we were in tech rehearsal, I think at the West Side, and then in November while we were still doing the show, I started the fight training. I started I started the training for the fight training. And this was like learning a dance, a technical choreographed dance. And I had never done fighting before, and it was so fun and put me in like the best physical shape of my life. And it changed my life because I now have been working out at least 4 days a week since I started this training a year and a half ago. And I found it so therapeutic, and the pains that I was having in my back or my knee went away because it was kind of like physical therapy, working every element of my body. And I've held on to it, and it totally has changed my life. And getting to do the fights was like a childhood dream of being in fight scenes, and it was so freaking fun.
I mean, it's really glad to hear that those things that seem so exciting are actually that exciting when you get a chance to do it.
I mean, it was intimidating at first because you walk into the gym or the giant tent that we had, and it's like Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss are like, and I was like, where am I right now? This is crazy. And coming from playing Seymour, who was the total opposite of this world, was a real like 180 shakeup. But it was fun.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be in theaters and streaming in December. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe part of a movie club or something. I don't know.
Ooh, maybe.
Oh, God. Let's go. Remember when we all went to see Frozen 2? Everybody went to see Frozen 2 while we were doing
I do.
little fun. Maybe
that was a real that was a real dream. I don't know how many other shows have like little family outings.
That was such
especially to go see a movie that your your co-star is
so
in.
Cool. It was so fun.
It was really, really good. And it helped that the movie was good too. You know, like you know, when you go see your friends' shows and it's like, good show. This one was actually really good.
It was such a fun between the matinee and the night show. It was like such
That's right. Well, Jonathan, it has been just a dream talking to you as usual.
Oh my God.
I will just say again, like it has been so inspiring working with you and getting to know you and like just seeing how you work and stay joyful and playful in, you know, everything that you do. That it's a huge part of what I try to do in my own work, and a huge part of what I think is really helpful to making good puppetry and just making good performances is staying, you know, alive and playful and
how
present.
do you stay playful? What's your like way?
I mean, it sometimes helps to just remember that it's hard to get too upset when you're wiggling a doll for a living. You know, like there is a kind of absurdity to it all where it's like, look at what we're doing. Like you can't get too upset about. Obviously I take my work very seriously. I try not to take myself very seriously. It's all a little silly, and I'm very happy to be able to play. And especially in environments like we had at Little Shop, where everybody in the room's at the top of their game, and the level of collaboration is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like there's anything in particular that makes for really solid collaborations or projects that you really love to collaborate in?
Yes, when it's about the audience and the story, when that is the main focus. And that with Little Shop, I think everyone, like you said, was really very fine-tuned in their talents and their abilities. But for me, the overarching thing was everybody just believes in that show so much. Yeah. And everyone's heart was in doing Little Shop. Like the passion for the project were just deferential to the material. And that, I feel like, makes everybody's ego less and really engaging in the best way to honor the material that's written.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you
for being part of our 50th episode. It's really just a joy, and hopefully we'll get to see you again real soon.
I look forward to it. Happy 50th.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, thank you all for joining us today on this momentous 50th episode. Hopefully it's more, at least. Huge thanks to our guest, Jonathan Groff. You can catch more Puppet Kitchen on our website and on Instagram. You can also support this show on our Patreon account to help us bring more great guests like Jonathan. He's not on social media, so go follow his movies. Check him out on IMDb and IMDb. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who contributed great questions, and thanks to Katie for keeping everything running really smoothly.
Thank you, Eric, for keeping things running smooth. Just
remember, until next time, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.